Welcome to Module 2, Discover Your Channels on the Client Acquisition Sprint. So we did this earlier today, and unfortunately the recording didn't work because I didn't push the right button. So we're going to record it without the other folks here. Going to do it again, get it up for you tonight. So here we go. One of the most difficult things for me as a photography coach is when I talk to somebody and they don't know who their clients are going to be. So part of our 4-point plan that we're doing here on Client Acquisition Sprint is building a list of channels. We're talking about channels. So think of channels as buckets, verticals that you can stack up with different kind of criteria. You set it up what you want in there and you fill it out. So we want to know who needs the work that we do. Who needs it? We're making photographs, but who really needs those photographs? Because that makes a big difference. We've done our portfolio. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Commercial photography is designed to sell things, services, products, all kinds of stuff. It sells things. It's not art. Although some art photographers can do commercial, and some commercial photographers definitely do art. It's not designed to be art. We're there to solve a problem for our client. We're there to help them sell more widgets, sell their services, get more attention, everything that commerce runs on. That's what we're supposed to do. Clients depend on us to bring the highest level of professionalism to the images and the work that we do. It's a craft. Photography is a craft. We use art in our craft. We use technique in our craft. But at the end of the day, commercial photography is a craft. Prima donnas exist in this industry, but they don't last very long. They don't have a long lifespan in business terms, especially in smaller towns. Maybe you can be a prima donna in New York, but in Toledo, that isn't going to fly. Our clients expect a high level of skill and professionalism, and who we are is a big part of why they hire us. So we provide the skills, we provide the professionalism, and we also provide ourselves, our brand. Do we deliver things on time? Do we get it done? Does everything happen the way it's supposed to be? That is so important. Part of the skill set is to market with a sense of who our clients are. We respect both their time and their work and our time and our work. Back in the day, we would send out 250,000 postcards, for instance, to people who we had no idea who they were, why they were there, why they might need us. We just had a list. We didn't have the internet. We couldn't qualify our leads, so we just shotgunned it out. Quite expensive. Sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. It's important to know what kind of photography you are. We are a commercial photographer. That means we're B2B. We're not B2C. B2C is like wedding photography. So if you think about the reality of it, B2C means that everybody in the pie is a client. Everybody. You can sell wedding pictures to anybody who wants to get married. No problem there. In B2C, that's the world, and that's who we're selling to right there. B2B, business to business. We're selling to art directors, marketing directors, editors, creative directors, all who are in the middle of selling something else. We're not selling to the John Q. public. We're selling to that tiny niche. Now, that's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is it's easy for us to find that niche. The curse is it's hard to find that niche. They're hidden. But once we find them, we know. So we have to know where we stand in this business. Their clients, our clients are consumers. So generally we're building an image that they can use to sell their product, their services to consumers. It's a lot different than shooting for somebody that you know, or a family friend, or just on your own. We have two types of commercial photography, really, not two genres, but two types. We have commercial, advertising, PR, promotional photography, and we have editorial photography. We're going to talk about a little bit about both of those coming up here. But those are two segments. Editorial is commercial photography, but commercial photography is editorial, but they're approached quite differently. So what's a channel? Knowing who would use the work you do will help identify if and where they are in your area. I just read that to you, but that's what it says. That's what it means. A channel will help you find those people, if they're there in your area, who need photography. And if they sell something, they need photography. If they build something, they need photography. If they sell a service, they need photography. If you want to shoot fashion, okay. Fashion is to commercial photography like soccer is to football. It's kind of the same, but it's not the same. Fashion is a very unique form of commercial photography that if you want to be a fashion photographer, you got to move to a big city, probably New York somewhere, some place in New York, possibly LA. That's a big possible, possibly LA, maybe Miami on a short list, but New York is where fashion is, or Milan, or Paris, or Tokyo. That's where fashion is done. The rest of it is off the rack clothing. You're just selling a product. It's just product photography. If you choose to live somewhere like Toledo or Albuquerque or Abilene, Texas, probably not going to shoot a whole lot of fashion. You might shoot girls in dresses, but there'll be $39.95 dresses for Kohl's rather than fashion, like for Balenciaga type thing. There's no fashion there. There's catalog. When I was shooting in Chicago, I got a lot of catalog work. In fact, that was pretty much all I did. And I loved being a fashion photographer. I thought it was really great. But all you have to do is shoot catalog for a couple of years, and you realize that that's not quite what I wanted to do, if you get my drift. It was pretty brutal. We're not talking about, when we talk about fashion and shooting in Toledo and places like that, we're talking about T-shirts and stuff like that. So, we're going to talk about genres versus channels. Because when I start talking about channels, people say, well, you mean like being an architecture photographer? No. An architecture photographer is a genre. A lifestyle photographer is a genre. Food photography, that's a genre. Your genres are what you shoot. Channels are the clients within what you shoot. That tall channel, the clients within that bucket that you shoot for. So identifying channels help you develop a better portfolio, a stronger portfolio. When you know your channels, you know what kind of work that you want to do for those channels. It's really, really powerful. Get the portfolio on this side, your channels on this side, they blend in the middle, and it makes your portfolio stronger. Channels give your genres more meaning because you can see the possibilities. When you're just looking at, oh, I shoot landscape. Well, who's your clients? I don't know. People who buy landscape. Well, whole lot more than that. There's a whole lot more than just people who want to buy landscapes in your mix there. I'll tell you the truth, there are. Genres can be cross-channel. You can shoot architecture for one client, and the same architecture shot could be used to sell a product within the photograph. That architecture shot could be a travel photograph. So your architecture shot that you did, your genres, can go cross channels. In other words, that architecture shot you could sell to a company that sells faucets. That's in a channel. It could be sold to a company that does travel. That's a different channel. It's pretty interesting how this goes. For instance, landscape can be used in beer commercials, bike ads, hiking, adventure products, GPS, cars, all kinds of things, food, leisure, all kinds of things. That genre can be used across these channels. The difference between commercial photographers and editorial photographers is somewhat simple when you think about it. Editorial photographer is there to create images to sell a story. They've got the story, whether the story is how great the hotel is on the beach, or that their bikes are the fastest bikes around, and they show a bunch of stuff about the bikes, bike races and things. That's editorial. Commercial photographer shoots the bike, probably in a studio or maybe in a set that's been pre-approved by the ad agency. They're going for what we call the hero shot. Editorial is going for a group of photographs. Many times editorial will include products from different manufacturers. Like the bike magazine may run an article on the 10 greatest dirt bikes available, motocross bikes. They're not being paid by the motocross bike makers to put it in there. They're doing a story and showing the 10 best motocross bikes, which could be all different kinds of brands. Commercial photographers are hired by a brand, a type of bike, a maker of the bike, or an ad agency that handles the advertising to do a picture of that bike to sell that bike, where the magazine was selling the thrill of the bikes. Both commercial and editorial work for B2B, but the commercial work usually ends up in a catalog, as an ad, in a PR, and the editorial usually ends up in a story, whether in a magazine or an online magazine or something like that. Editorial doesn't pay as much as commercial. It just doesn't. They're similar, but they're different. We're going to talk in the contracts portion of this, we're going to talk about how the contracts differ across these two types of photography. So we'll talk about that then. Understanding a channel. These are the channels. I like to think that you need 6. I really do believe you need 6 channels to have a real good working business. I didn't say 6 genres. I said 6 channels. So we're not talking about what you shoot. We're talking about who would buy what you shoot. Your portfolio is your roadmap. We've already talked about portfolios. So what does your portfolio look like? That's going to tell you what kind of clients you should go after. Building channels is not hard science. A little bit of whimsy, a little bit of guesswork involved in it. It's not hard science. We don't want to second guess anybody. This is where we get back to that adage of, oh, I need to shoot what the client wants to see. We don't know what the client wants to see. We have no clue what the client wants to see. They're individual people. Some want to see this, some want to see that. You can't have a clue what they want to see. You just have to do the best to show them what you do. Let them take what you do and find a place for it. So we use our imaginations. We stretch the boundaries a little bit. We look at that photograph and we think, well, maybe it could be used for this, maybe it could be used for that, but it certainly could be used for all of these people in my channels. We're getting to that now. So let your tear sheets, let the work that you've done, let your portfolio lead you to channels. We can't let practicality dominate everything, right? Some channels may not be worth the work. For instance, if you shot only dragsters, you were a real dragster aficionado. Well, you got drag magazines, dragster magazines. You've got some race car magazines. You might have an editorial or two, but it's a very small niche within another niche within another niche, auto sports. And where would you go with it? Maybe manufacturers of parts, etc. But you're just not going to have that many channels for it. So some things that you shoot are going to be very tough to market and make a living with if you can't find enough channels to sell it. So Alaska for summer sports, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Alaska is beautiful in the summertime. People up there hiking and everything. Tucson for fashion? No. Omaha for mountain climbing? I don't think so. How do we find our clients? Number one, we look at what we do, who we are, what we have, and what we want to do. What we do currently, who we are, what we have, and what we want to do. What we do. People and portraits, location, product, food. So this is our faux photographer here. He's filled it in. People and portraits on location, product, and food. That sounds like good makings for a lifestyle shooter, doesn't it? Makes perfect sense for lifestyle. The food, they've got location work. It's going to be lifestyle. It's pretty cool. Maybe some traveling, maybe some adventure photography as well. Who we are. Well, in this case, 50-year-old with a lot of hiking experience and some travel experience as well. It's looking good. Okay, getting a sense of type of work they do, a little bit about them. We like to shoot in natural light, but we also know our way around lighting. So we're not going to be confused if it's a job where we need lighting, we can handle it. We're gregarious and outgoing. Can't pronounce gregarious, but that's what we are, and outgoing. So we're a little bit of extroverted, and we have a pretty good portfolio, but it may need a little filling in. Audit 2, what we have: 2 DSLRs, 4 lenses, lights and stands. We're well equipped to shoot professionally. So we've got our flags and our light meters, etc. We've got camp gear, truck, and outdoors gear because we really like to get outside, and we live fairly close to a lot of outdoor adventure and lifestyle. Okay, that's good. So far, pretty good. What do we want to do? Well, we want to shoot editorial for magazines and websites. We want to get assignments to go to Jackson Hole. We want to get assignments to go to Missoula. We want to go to Cody, Wyoming. We want to go and do these things outside. We want to work with designers and direct client so we can do collateral work like brochures, catalogs, online sales, etc. for people who make what? Outdoor equipment, or they sell treks. They do camping trips. Great. What we love: kayaking, river running, hiking, gliding, mountaineering, primitive backpacking, destinations, gear, vehicle, and generally anything in the great outdoors. Okay, that's all falling in line. We can see where we're going with this. So the research is making sure you're working towards your goals by understanding what your goals are, and understanding what your clients have, and understanding what your clients need, and understanding what you have to give it to them. Okay? If you're in doubt about what you have and what you want to do and how you want to get there, ask somebody who is in the know and then listen to them. So let's discover our example photographer. Lives in a small northwestern town, 50 years old, got 2 bodies, 4 lenses, okay? Lives in a small northwestern town, likes to shoot landscapes and environmental interiors, shoots basic full frame 35 digital gear, prefers natural light, no studio. Prefers natural light, but doesn't, he's not condemned to it. Can also light as well, no studio. What's our first channel? Well, we know what we do well. Now, who wants it? Who needs photography? Brands, services, products, books, brochures, catalogs, social media, charities, governor, entrepreneurs, distributors, manufacturers, on and on. That's who needs photography. Well, that's a lot. For somebody who shoots landscapes and interiors and environmentals, that's starting to look not too bad. All of these people could use that work. All of these what you would call niches can use that work. That sounds pretty good to me. Magazines are the lowest hanging fruit. Magazines are the easiest thing for you to get into. You want to research all the magazines in your area. And by area, I mean your town, your city, your state. Your town, the closest big city, and the state. Magazines are the ones that'll take a chance on you first. Ad agencies would be last. So magazines, we want to shoot for magazines. That goes in our list. That's a channel. Calendars. What in the world? Sorry about that. Don't know what's going on there. Okay. Calendars. Okay. Calendars are an item, but they're usually an item that you sell out. You're not usually hired to do a calendar, but you could be from anybody. So calendars are also kind of low-hanging fruit. It's not a niche. You can sell a calendar project to any of the people in that other list, and probably anybody in your channel, which we're going to come up and do. Here's a group of people. Here's a bucket list, right? Camping gear companies. Camping gear companies. That's pretty cool. I like that. Camping gear companies, that's a lot of people. We're going to break that down in a minute. Travel-related advertising. That's a lot of different places too. A lot of different niches in there. Lifestyle products. Beautiful lake shot. Add an older couple, got an insurance, investment, pharmaceutical, lovely waterfall, add a couple of teenagers, a summer camp, an ad for flannel hiking shorts. Lots of environmental photographs, landscapes, etc., can be turned into ads pretty easily. Don't discount them. Adventure products, canoes, skis, jet skis, gliders, parasails, RVs, all kinds of stuff. Can you think of more? Because we need 5 channels to be in business. We need 5. We have 6 here, counting the calendars. We're going to leave that off for this because, again, that's something you can sell to everybody and you kind of sell it out. So here we go. Here's our channels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pretty cool. Landscape and environmental space, the kind of work we do. And now we're going to get into the nitty gritty. We still have a lot of channels for environmental work. So here we go. Camping gear. We're just taking one of the previous channels that we have. We're just doing hiking gear. And now we're doing sub-channels. Hiking gear. So we got boots, camping gear, camping technology, trailers, camping food consumables. These are sub-categories, sub-channels, if you will. Sure, we can find a few more. Hiking boots and gear. One sub-channel. Possible clients, boots, backpacks, knives, tents, utility belts, sweaters, jackets, gloves, sunglasses, hats, warmers, camping matches, material manufacturing, fabricators, distributors, and retailers. As a matter of fact, there's these big stores all over the Midwest and out here. Bass Pro Shop, Cabela's, these massive outdoor adventure stores. You walk in there, literally every product on sale there, manufacturer, distributor, PR firm, ad agency, designer, every one of them needs photography. I bet you've never walked into a Cabela's store and said, wow, here's a bunch of people who need photography. But that's exactly what you're doing. And that's just one sub-channel. One sub-channel. We didn't do camping technology. That could be GPS, cell phones, battery chargers, solar lamps, solar chargers, on and on and on. Now you're walking into an electronics store and realizing the same thing. If they sell it, they need photographs. They need product shots. They need ad shots. They need product sheet shots, trade show brochures, on and on. They need photography. Photography is a big deal. Photography 1. So this is really, we're getting kind of nitty gritty now, right? Now, when we started, we didn't know who would shoot, as a landscape shooter, who would hire a landscape shooter. Now we're down into one channel, 5 sub-channels, and I don't know, I'm not going to count them, 20 possible types of clients here. Anything that's in Cabela's, anything that's in Bass Pro, anything that's in a ski shop in Aspen, if they sell it, they need photographs of it or PR. They need to be contacted. Location is always a consideration. Used to be very difficult to be a photographer if you didn't live in a major metropolitan area. Today, you don't have to. Everything that photographer wants to do, he could do if he lived in Boise or I don't know, Durango, Colorado. We're not stuck by location anymore because we have transportation and the internet. Stuff gets shipped to you, you shoot it, send it back all the time. One of my friends is a photographer. He's got a studio behind his house out in Scottsdale, and he has a UPS truck pulling up pretty much every day, dropping off and picking up. And every day he's shooting stuff in his studio for clients as far away as Maine. So, it doesn't matter where you are. True story. My friend Brett Doss in Seattle got a call from a company to shoot a snare drum because they were looking for a photographer. They invented a snare drum, looking for a photographer. They didn't know how to find a photographer, and they found my friend Brett in Seattle. The kicker is that they're literally 1.5 miles from me down the road in an industrial park, literally 1.5 miles away. So there's plenty of photographers in Phoenix, but they found Brett through LinkedIn, and they wanted Brett to shoot for them. Cool. You don't have to live where your clients are anymore. So given the tools you have, do you feel comfortable accepting the assignment? If they're asking for something that you don't have, you may have to think twice about it. So knowing what's in your portfolio and knowing what you can do is really powerful and will give you that confidence to say yes. If you need anything esoteric, you need to rent it. Borrow lenses on the West Coast, Lens Pro to go on the East Coast, both in the middle of the nation. You're expected to have a certain amount of gear. If you're in a smaller town, if you're in New York, maybe not, LA, maybe not, but anywhere else, literally anywhere else, you're expected to have basic gear. You're not expected to have 40 pro photos to light up a river gorge. You're not expected to have a 400 millimeter f2.8 lens, the $50,000 lens. Not expected to have that. You rent that. You pass the rental on plus 18% to your client. Anything that's out of the ordinary, out of what I would consider a nice small kit that could sit in the corner, that's all you're supposed to have. If you have to rent a studio, you rent a studio. Lots of photographers rent studios these days, mainly because who wants to have a studio sitting there only getting 2 or 3 days use out of it, since so much work these days is done on location. A lot of stuff's still done in the studio, but here in Phoenix, I think we're down about 5, maybe a dozen small studios here, but not terribly busy. We got a couple larger studios that are pretty busy, but most photographers I know either rent a studio when they need it or shoot out of their garage or basement, or they've converted a room into a little studio. So now you've got this great set of channels. Now you can look at your portfolio and say, hey, are there any gaps here? Are there any things I need to be looking at? So you pull your portfolio out and you look at your channels, and you look at your portfolio and back at your channels. What can you add to your portfolio that'll fit those channels? This is where it takes some time and some research. This is where you spend a little bit of time looking at your portfolio, looking at your channels, figuring out whether you need to keep shooting for them. You may have discovered something else. You may have discovered that as you're building your channels, you're thinking, oh gosh, White River Rapids, renting, there's a bunch of people in in our area here who do whitewater rafting. Maybe they need photographs, and all of a sudden you fall in love with whitewater rafting. All kinds of things can happen. Really, really cool. You seeing the power, though? Power is huge to this. Identifying your subchannels starts to clarify everything for what we're doing. If you take the time and you make the commitment, you'll be incredibly far ahead of your competition, because almost no one does this. Here's the truth. A lot of people like to take photographs, 100%. 75% of those people are they want to do really well at it. They want to do as best they can. Only 47% are going to actually try to do the best they can. And most of them are going to quit and leave about 10% left to finally carry through. Of that 10% that's left that finally carries through, maybe 2 really go on to make it. Because it's a huge commitment to do this. It's a big deal. It's tough. You have to be willing to do all the things, mainly that are possibly part of what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to be very brutal with your portfolio. I'm asking you to take that portfolio and compare it against your channels. Now, don't worry if you don't have all your channels for the next meeting. That's okay. You don't have to do all your channels tonight. You're going to take a couple of possibly weeks even to build your channels out, but start building them ASAP. Start building those channels. When you start to build your channels and sub-channels, some are going to just pop into your head. Great. Those are low-hanging fruit. You already know about them. You're going to have to press on. Press on. If the first 5 are easy, the next 2 are tough. 8, 9, and 10 are going to be really hard, but you got to find them. You got to think about them. Maybe, like I say, you leave it at 8 and it'll pop into your brain when you're least expecting it. You come back and fill it in. Never hesitate to pull out your list of possibilities of sub channels and add to your channels. Don't be afraid of adding a channel at some point. Maybe that's in your future, or taking away a channel. I know a photographer who's real estate photography, and real estate's just not doing gangbusters right now. And the work is not coming in like it did. And so that photographer's going, I think I really like to shoot food. And so now we're creating a food channel. And that's what you do. I've often talked about the inexplicable thing of when you let your mind know that you want to receive something. And I don't mean woo-woo. I'm not talking, if you believe it, it will happen. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when we allow our brains to see something. A couple of years ago, I was sitting at a light, and a guy on an Indian motorcycle rode up. Now, I thought Indians went out of business a long time ago. I wasn't riding a motorcycle at the time, but I knew about motorcycles because I used to ride. And I thought, wow, an Indian? That's amazing. Boy, he's rebuilt that Indian to look like an Indian. I'd seen one before. That week, I saw 3 more. So I had seen them before. It just didn't register. It didn't register. And so my receptors to seeing Indians weren't turned on. Once I allowed to turn it on, then I got to see them everywhere they were. This happens all the time. Turn your receptors on to see and be inspired by what you see to create your channels. It'll come to you. They'll flow right on in. And of course, serendipity is always a lot of fun. Just sort of happens. Ubiquitous channels for all photographers, ad agencies, designers, PR firms, and in-house marketing communications. Those are sub-channels in every one of your channels. They're sub-channels. They're not, an ad agency isn't a company that sells skis. They're a company that sells skis and boats and women's running gear and possibly shoes and whatever. They're a middle ground. They will take you in and then serve you out. They're kind of like, well, think of them, they're a server for you. So they hire photographers for all kinds of things because they're handling all kinds of things. Same all the way through here. So we've identified what we like to shoot for, but sometimes we have to go through an ad agency to shoot for them. So we have to get the ad agency or the PR firm or the designers to be looking at us. Make sure it's a really powerful portfolio and start putting a list together of folks in your region. Use Google. If you live in St. Paul, Minnesota, sit down with Google and start Googling ad agencies in St. Paul, Minnesota. They're going to pop up and you're going to be all over that little map that Google gives you. You can click on the little red dot and it'll bring up the sidebar. The sidebar will have a link to the website. Click on the website. Do they use photography? Do they? Because some designers only do logos and identity, and they don't hire photographers. Some designers do a lot of brochures and products. They do hire photographers. So before you waste time sending photography stuff to your, what did I do here? Waste time selling your photography off to a PR firm or a designer who only does logos. Save his time, save your time, and just focus on the people you want. So you have to do a little bit of research. So we build a book, we've got our channels, we start filling it in, and now we know how to figure out who wants the work that you're doing. Build your channels and get your sub-channels. We'll see you in the next class.